Welcome to another study of Proverbs. We're going to be in Proverbs chapter 24 today, and I need to let you know that I won't be giving these lessons next week. We'll skip a week. I'm going to be out of town to go visit my younger brother who's having some health issues. But today we're going to be in chapter 24, and let's begin now at verses 1 and 2. Do not be envious of evil men, nor desire to be with them, for their minds devise violence, and their lips talk of trouble. Don't be envious of wicked men. Why would we be envious? Some are envious because they see the confidence in wicked people. They seem to have a certain swagger. They don't appear to be afraid of anything. There is a certain amount of power in people of violence, of wicked men who look for violence. They seek violence and they talk of trouble. And he says, don't want to be like them. Now, Solomon's father, David, kind of gives us the truth about these wicked people. In Psalm 37, the first 3 verses, here's what David says. He says, do not fret because of evildoers, and be not envious toward wrongdoers, for they will wither quickly like the grass and fade like the green herb. Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and cultivate faithfulness. These guys, they look like they have all the confidence of the world. They got the swagger. They seem to have a certain amount of no fear. But David says they aren't going to be here very long. That ends up being the way of violent men. They end up dying violently oftentimes. And don't envy them, he says, because their minds devise violence and on their lips are always trouble. They're always looking for trouble. And our goal as Christians, obviously, is to be like God. And God is not like this at all. Verses 3 and 4. By wisdom a house is built, and by understanding it is established. And by knowledge the rooms are filled with all precious and pleasant riches. I've liked this passage. In fact, I used this passage in a series on the home several years ago. I used this as the basic verse. By wisdom a house is built. Wisdom is an action. It's doing something. It'll build your home. It'll give you a strong house. And it also will furnish your house. By knowledge, the rooms are going to be filled with all kinds of precious and precious and pleasant riches. And so we're to seek wisdom, and it's going to do us well. It'll do your family well to have this kind of wisdom. If you want to furnish your house with good things, you need to have knowledge. The most knowledge you need to have, the thing you really need to know, is how to please your spouse. Verse 5, a wise man is strong, and a man of knowledge increases power. For by wise guidance you will wage war, and in abundance of counselors there is victory. Is a theme that he's talked about many times before, the need for an abundance of counselors. But he says a wise man is strong. We're not talking about physical strength here. We're talking about a moral strength. We're talking about a spiritual strength. And a man of knowledge increases in power. If you're going to wage war, and that's what he's going to be talking about in this verse, if you're going to wage war, you need to know that is a life and death proposition. There's no turning back. You need good counsel, whether or not this is a good idea, or you might find yourself in a world of trouble and a lot of hurt. So the wise man is strong. He has convictions. He's strong spiritually. A man of knowledge increases power. For by wise guidance you will wage war, and in abundance of counselors there is victory. Verse 7, wisdom is too exalted for a fool. He does not open his mouth in the gate. A fool just doesn't have anything good to say. And so at the gate, and there's the court of this day, in the court he just keeps his mouth shut because he doesn't have anything to add to any of this. And they may ask him to keep his mouth shut, in fact, because he just doesn't have much to add to any of the conversations. Verses 8 and 9 go together. One who plans to do evil, men will call a schemer. The devising of folly is sin, and the scoffer is an abomination to men. So here is the schemer, the scoffer. Once again, we talked about this a number of times. The one who plans to do evil. He's devising folly. He is just not serious-minded enough to do anything that is important. So he's a fool. He's a schemer. He is a scoffer. Verse 10, if you're slack in the day of distress, your strength is limited. If you're slack in the day of distress, don't quit when things get rough. Don't quit. Keep on going. Verse 11, 12, deliver those who are being taken away to death, and those who are staggering to slaughter. Oh, hold them back. If you say, see, we did not know this. Does he not consider it who weighs the hearts? And does he not know it who keeps your soul? And will he not render to man according to his work? It reminds me of Nazi Germany, when they were literally taking Jews and putting them to death. And they were taking them to the staggering slaughter. Millions of them were being executed. And when the Allies finally came and freed those camps, and they asked the Germans what was going on, they said, we didn't know anything about it. It's not our fault. We didn't know this. And Solomon wants us to know this excuse doesn't work with God. You can't bury your head in the sand. Back in 1939, Dietrich Bonhoeffer wrote, Jewish lives matter. He was just bringing to the forefront that these people are important and they're being slaughtered. They're being put to death. This is also a passage that is spiritually true as well. We can see people who are dying without God, and we can see people who are in Christ but are falling away. And they, too, are those that we have to pull out of the slaughter. In Galatians 6, it says, brethren, even if anyone is caught in any trespass, you who are spiritual, restore such a one in a spirit of gentleness, each one looking to yourself, so that you too will not be tempted. You who are spiritual, who is that? Well, it's all of us. You're spiritual, you see somebody in trouble. You can't say, I didn't know that they were having problems. You know, whether it's domestic abuse, whether it is a societal abuse, whatever it is, we need to act. We need to say something. We can't just ignore it and say, oh, we didn't even know anything about this. 13 and 14. My son, eat honey, for it's good. Yes, the honey from the comb is sweet to your taste. Know that wisdom is thus for your soul. If you find it, then there will be a future, and your hope will not be cut off. Honey from the comb. I have to say, I've never had honey from the comb, but there's nothing apparently more pure and more sweet than honey straight out of the comb. It is good for your health. It's good for the taste. It's good for the body. And he says, wisdom is like that to the soul. It is that sweetness. It's something that we should want and to long for. Palestine was known as the land flowing with milk and honey. One time, that's what it looked like. There was milk and honey flowing everywhere. My mom grew up in a little city of Tranquility in California, and that used to be the theme of their city. It was a land flowing with milk and honey. If I would say Tranquility, a land flowing with milk and honey. And then sometime after my parents got married, they took that little motto off. My dad used to joke, he said, that's because I took their honey. Anyway. Verse 15, do not lie in wait, O wicked man, against the dwelling of the righteous. Do not destroy his resting place. For a righteous man falls 7 times and rises again, but the wicked stumble in time of calamity. Talking about the wicked men who will take advantage of the righteous. Even while they're sleeping, he'll attack them. He will destroy their property. And he says, you better be careful, because the righteous guy falls 7 times, but he just keeps getting up. That's the difference between a wicked man and a righteous man. The wicked man falls in the time of calamity. He does not get back up. The righteous keeps getting up 7 times. He says it's an innumerable number of times. No matter what you do to this guy, he's going to keep on going. He's going to keep on getting up. And I think that's important for us today too. How many times have we fallen? Don't get discouraged. Get up and keep on moving forward. That is the definition of a righteous person, he says. Verse 17, do not rejoice when your enemy falls, and do not let your heart be glad when he stumbles. Or the Lord will see it and be displeased and turn his anger away from him. Isn't that amazing? I mean, isn't that our natural response, is to rejoice when our enemy falls? And we rejoice, we're going to dance on his grave. I mean, we're so glad, he got what he deserved. And that just seems to be our natural response. But he says, don't rejoice. Don't rejoice when your enemy falls. Don't let your heart be glad when he stumbles. Don't be glad that things aren't going well for him. For the Lord will be displeased, and he'll take care of that wicked man. He will take his anger away from him. So be careful how you respond, no matter how bad you dislike the guy. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus seemed to be responding to this same thought. In Matthew 5, beginning in verse 38, you have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist the evil person. But whoever slaps you on your right cheek, turn the other to him also. If anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, let him have your coat also. Whoever forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. Give to him who asks of you, and do not turn away from him who wants to borrow from you. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Once again, that's not the natural thing to do either, is it? He says, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven. For he causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? If you greet only your brothers, what more are you doing than others? Do not even the Gentiles do the same? Therefore, you are to be perfect, complete, mature, as your heavenly Father is perfect. And here's Jesus talking about how we should treat even our enemies. And of course, in Matthew 7, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So Solomon's just warning us about our heart, about our attitude. Don't rejoice when your enemy falls. Interesting, isn't it? Verse 19. Do not fret because of evildoers, or be envious of the wicked, for there will be no future for the evil man. The lamp of the wicked will be put out. Now here we go with verses 1 and 2 once again, where it tells us not to be envious of a wicked person. And we went to Psalm 37, which basically says the same thing as this verse here. Do not fret because of evildoers. Do not be envious of the wicked, for there's no future for the wicked man. There is no future in crime. It doesn't pay. My son, fear the Lord and the King. Do not associate with those who are given to change, for their calamity will rise suddenly, and who knows the ruin that comes from both of them. Why is it that we just seem to like rebellion? Why is it that rebellion seems so glamorous to us? There are some folks that they want to change just everything in society. There's hardly nothing they wouldn't change if they had a chance. Now, there are obviously things that need to be changed, but we don't need a revolution all the time. Back in the 60s, when I was a teenager, this passage would have made sense as much as it does today. Because we have people all the time demanding change, wanting this and that to change, hoping for something better. But as long as you have people, you're going to have problems. As long as there's evil, you're going to have problems. And we're not going to do it with people. We're not going to do it with evil. So we're always going to have not a utopia, not a perfect situation. In South America, where they're constantly going through revolution and change, they haven't brought anything good or better to their people. We need to be cautious, and that's what he's warning of us. My son, fear the Lord and the King. Don't associate with those who are given to change for change's sake. Because their calamity will rise suddenly. They're going to get in trouble. Verse 23, these also are sayings of the wise. To show partiality in judgment is not good. He who says to the wicked, you are righteous, peoples will curse him, nations will abhor him, but to those who rebuke the wicked will be delight, and a good blessing will come upon them. He kisses the lips who gives a right answer. Again, he's talking about the need for justice, impartiality in justice. Don't say the wicked are righteous, and don't say the righteous are wicked. Don't bunch people together. That seems to be the case that we want to make today. Just lump everybody together. There are some bad people, and there are bad people in every occupation, and they need to be punished. And that's what justice is all about, punishing the evildoer. And that's what he's talking about here. This is why he's saying, don't be partial in your judgment. And don't call wicked people good and good people wicked. Prepare your work outside. Make it ready for yourself in the field. Afterwards, then build your house. Work comes first. He says, get out in the field and plant your crops. Do the hard work first. And after you do the hard work, then you can build your house. Then you can do the desirable thing, the pleasurable thing. You can start building your house and filling your house with all kinds of things. He's just saying, start working first. Get a job. Get a job before you get an apartment. Get a job before you start looking for a house. Get a job. Make some money first. And that's what he's saying. Prepare your work outside and make it ready for yourself in the field. Afterwards, then build your house. Work before pleasure. 28. Do not be a witness against your neighbor without cause, and do not deceive with your lips. Do not say, thus I shall do to him as he has done to me. I will render to the man according to his work. So don't be a false witness, especially if you're trying to seek revenge. You're deceptive with your lips because you want to do to them what they did to you. You want to make them pay. You want to punish them. And we know of witnesses who have done that exact thing. They've lied about who was that murdered somebody, raped somebody, stole from somebody. They have put the wrong people in jail. And they've done it because they're trying to use the courts as their own way of getting revenge. And he says, don't do that. Be careful. Don't be a false witness in that thing. Verse 30, I passed by the field of the sluggard, and by the vineyard of the man lacking sense. And behold, it was completely overgrown with thistles. Its surface was covered with nettles, and its stone wall was broken down. When I reflected upon it, I looked and received instruction, a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest. Then your poverty will come as a robber, and your want like an armed man. The slug again. I passed the field of a sluggard, and it was filled with weeds. This guy hasn't gone out and taken care of his property at all. And verse 32 he says, and when I saw it, I reflected upon it. I looked at it, I received instruction. I learned something from watching this fella. Can you learn something from this guy? What are we learning? Well, we learn about stewardship. If you get a house, if you get the honor of owning a piece of property, take good care of it. That's what stewardship is. Go out and pull the weeds. Go out and make sure that the shrubbery is cut back. Make sure you're taking good care of that. And you say, well, I don't own my own house. I'm renting an apartment. I'm renting a house. It's not mine, so why should I care? Not my house. Let me tell you, the landlord, he only wants two things from you. He wants rent, and he wants it on time. And secondly, he wants somebody to take care of their property. I hear from people all the time, I got evicted. Well, weren't you paying rent? I pay my rent. He had no reason at all to evict me. But their house looked like a rummage sale. I mean, they just were a mess. I mean, they hadn't been taking care of anything. There's weeds growing up everywhere. And the guy's thinking, man, my property value is going to go down. I can't get these guys to even mow the lawn. People rent a house. They put their car up on blocks in the driveway. I mean, what's going on here? What's wrong? You've got to take care of the property. No matter where you live, take care of the property. For years I lived in a church parsonage, a church house. And I planted a rose garden, and I put flowers around my house. And I had some people say, why are you doing this? It's not even your house. I said, yeah, but I live here. You got to bloom where you're planted. Don't you want to enjoy the flowers that are around you? I mean, flowers, if you get annual flowers, they only last for a season and dead anyway. You get to enjoy that season of flowers, whether you own the house or you're merely renting it. And perennials just keep coming up year after year, make an investment, get some nicer flowers. And improve where you live. That's what wisdom is all about. He says, I learned that from looking at this sluggard. He taught me something. And so learn some things here and be wise. Proverbs is just so practical and it's so helpful. I'm enjoying going over these once again. It's been a while since I've gone through Proverbs. I'm enjoying these. Some of them I've almost forgotten about them. I've forgotten some of the details, certainly about them. But I hope you're enjoying this. We're almost through with Proverbs. We don't have but a couple more verses, a couple more chapters left. So remember, next week we'll take a break, and then I'll see you the following week. God bless you.